Hockey Inside Out, brought to you by Videotron.
Welcome to Hockey Inside Out. If you check on our HIO website, you'll see we're running a contest with an opportunity for 5 people to come watch the taping of an HIO show. You can also win a 1-year Mega TV package from Videotron, which includes a multi-room HD PVR, which sounds like a pretty nice prize. Chris, the Canadiens have clinched a playoff spot with 5 games to go. It looks like they're going to face Tampa in the first round. This is going to be a long series, I think.
It's great when you can clinch a spot with a loss, right?
Yeah.
I would think they're evenly matched. Carey Price and Ben Bishop, 2 really solid goaltenders. I think they got a lot bigger defense than the Canadiens have, but they match up pretty well in every area. All the games have been close this year. I would expect the same in the playoff series. I think it could. One of these series, you're going to see go 7 games. It's going to be so close.
Jack, this goalie, Ben Bishop, 6'7". He goes down, the crossbars at his shoulders. He's got a foot on both posts. It's not going to be easy to beat this guy.
Yeah, no, I don't see many goalies taller than I am, but he's got me by about an inch, and he seems huge in the net, and he's come into his own this year. I think the one edge the Canadians might have there, Price is playing terrific hockey, and he's got a little bit more experience in this kind of thing than Bishop does, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I see, after the game in Tampa, Michel Therrien gave the boys a day off in Florida before going to play Ottawa on Friday. I have a feeling they might be a little sluggish for that game. Therrien's been giving these guys a lot of days off, Chris. As a player, is that something you liked, or would you have preferred to be on the ice every day?
Yeah, certain days I wanted to be off. There's days you really need it, but some days you don't. But, now before it used to be L.A., the only warm weather place you go. Now it's Florida, so you have those options. You can give guys a little rest, and honestly, they took last night off. They don't need today off, but they're going to get it. And again, they struggled a bit last night, but it's good this time of year to give them a little break. I think mentally, even though they didn't play great, mentally it's good to get away from the rink for a day, do something else, and then get back at it.
Now, Jack, this 2.0 version of Michel Therrien, he said families first. We've had Alexei Emelin go home for family reasons, Thomas Plekanec. I don't think we would have seen this with Michel Therrien maybe the first time around.
No, you wouldn't have, and you're getting the kinder, gentler Therrien. They didn't get this in Pittsburgh either, but I think what's happened with him is that he's shown an ability to learn and adjust. And you contrast that with John Tortorella, who obviously can't learn a thing and is exactly the same coach that he was in Tampa 10 years ago, and it's been disastrous for the Canucks where Therrien's been able to adjust here. I really like what he's doing with the days off, because this team has had a playoff spot really locked up for a couple of weeks, and giving them days off right now, what you need is not to have that mental fatigue going into the playoffs, because whoever they have to face, however far they go, every game is going to be really tough.
Now, PK Subban back in the news again. He had 17 minutes and 48 seconds of ice time, Chris, against Tampa, which is low for him. Does this get blown out of proportion, the ice time for PK?
Yeah, at times, but he made some mistakes last night. He was coughing the puck up. He seemed off. The whole team seemed off. But again, JJ Daniel, I'm sure monitors that along with the coach. They talk. Oh, he's not playing well. I want to sit him. I'm not gonna. They go back and forth. So sometimes it can get blown out of proportion. So what? 17 minutes. Rest up for the playoffs.
Douglas Murray, it looks like he's going to get suspended for that elbow in Tampa, Jack. Is that maybe a good thing looking forward? Does this send a message to the Tampa Bay guys going into the playoffs? Keep your head up with this guy on the ice?
On balance, I think it was just a reaction elbow when it looked like the guy was going to go around him. But, whether it's 3 games or 5 games or whatever it is, personally I think it'll be 2 or 3. You know that you're playing a playoff series with this team. You know you're going to be looking at them every night for a while. And every single forward now on that Tampa Bay team is thinking, when number 6 is out there, I better have my head up, I got to be alert, or it's going to be my head that gets taken off next.
That's something you never would have done, right, Chris?
Well, not at all. I never played like that. The difference between myself and Murray, like you said, that was a reactionary one.
You're a little quicker than him, too.
It's like a guy sticking the knee out. You're going to get beat last second, you react. And Mine was all premeditated. I never reacted. I was going to elbow someone in the head. I was going to elbow him in the head.
Now, Jack, Martin St. Louis left Tampa. He's in New York. He finally scored his first goal in 15 games at the Rangers.
Yeah.
It looks like he's missing Tampa more than maybe Tampa is missing him at this point.
Yeah.
What's your take on that whole situation with happened?
Well, I think it's true. I mean, you know, for a guy who's as old as he is, St. Louis really acted like a bit of a baby in the whole thing. I was on his side. I felt like he should have been named to the Olympic team in the first place. I felt like he should have been there 4 years ago. But, you know, you're a professional. You suck it up, you go. He's got to know that Yzerman isn't alone making these decisions. He had pressures from all directions. And then he did end up on the team and played a fairly key role. So to come home after that and demand a trade, I heard a story that when Le Cavalier signed his big contract there, St. Louis was in the exercise room on an exercise bike. He heard about the contract. He jumped off the bike and stormed off and left the premises. You know, he's a very proud guy, and I think in this case, his pride bit him in the butt, because you look at what's happened to him there. People were complaining a bit about Vanek when it took him 2-3 games to get going here. Well, it's been way longer from St. Louis, and he's been way less a factor.
Now, playing against Tampa Bay, obviously the Habs are going to have to shut down Steven Stamkos. Chris, if you were playing, what would you do, or how would you try and shut down Steven Stamkos?
Elbow him in the head. No, I honestly, you have to pay attention to him, but are you going to center your whole game plan around trying to stop this guy? I think everybody, if you're going to put a line out against him, a Jonta or someone, I think that's a good game plan. Try and get him on the ice against him, maybe Plekanec, depending on what's going on. I don't know how the coach is going to think when it comes to this. At home, he might have the last change. No, he will have the last change, and he might use it that way. On the road, it'd be a little more difficult, and sometimes you get too wrapped up in that last change thing and trying to match players. You're always watching what the other team's doing. Oh, what's the other coach doing? Instead of, you're reacting to everything instead of dictating what you want to do with your players on the ice. So sometimes that can be overrated. And at times, when you're always matching against a guy, it throws off the other lines. There's no flow into the game. There's no jumping over the board. So you got to be careful with that. But again, you have to keep an eye on him. And I think that he's going to be really dangerous on the power play. That's where you have to be aware. Stay out of the penalty box and watch out for the PP.
Yeah. We'll be back after a short break, and we'll talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and someone has called their fans the Charlie Brown of the NHL. Welcome back to the HIO show. Adam Proto of the Hockey News recently said that the Toronto Maple Leaf fans were the Charlie Brown of the NHL, Jack. Why does this team just suck every year, it seems?
Long practice.
It's my turn.
You're too short to mess with that. No, seriously, their leaders aren't leaders. I think that's where it starts. When Dion Phaneuf is your captain, you've got a problem. Phil Kessel, what did they say? He can't spell C.
Yeah.
And they've got a problem there. They've got a problem with the forwards that don't come back to help what is already a weak defense. And, they were doing it with mirrors for a long, long time this season. The last 20 games, things tighten up. It doesn't work anymore. They can't come back and score 4 or 5 goals to get themselves out of the holes they put themselves in. And Carlisle, when he was fired in Anaheim, they said he couldn't get teams off to a fast start. Same thing's happening in Toronto.
Yeah, I look at Kessel as being one of the catalysts of this whole failure here. I watched him last night play against Calgary. He had a tough first period. He was banging his stick, throwing his stick at the coach's feet. He was all upset. He's shaking his head on the bench. You know why the Bruins got rid of him. They don't want a guy like that around. And yeah, he was young at the time in the league, and I thought he'd come around a little bit. First Olympics there, I saw him play in Vancouver. He was nowhere. He wouldn't go near the puck. He was scared to get hit, and that hasn't changed. Phil Kessel, he'll get his points, he'll get his cookies, but when it comes time for the team to win and him to be a leader, he's not there.
It looks like the Habs are going to be the only Canadian team in the playoffs, Jack. Is it a case that there's just too much pressure on Canadian teams? Why is there just one team in the playoffs?
I just don't buy the pressure thing. And if there's pressure, I think it's the worst here. There's a big difference. They always talk about Toronto. In Toronto, there are no expectations. They haven't won since I was in diapers. So nobody expects them to actually do something. Here, not only is there the media mob to deal with, but real expectations. You're supposed to win the damn Stanley Cup. That is why you are in Montreal. And if you don't, they're darn sure going to let you know about it. You think there wasn't pressure on all those teams in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s? It was always there. And they won, and they won, and they won. Actually, if anything's missing in Toronto, it's pressure because the fans are such schmucks. They keep buying tickets to watch this garbage.
You thrived on the pressure here, didn't you, Chris?
Well, yeah, and again, a different era, and this era, all the teams, it's 30 teams. It's so hard to make the playoffs. It's crazy, and the parity in the league now is so different than it was back then. I remember back in the day playing against Toronto. They were brutal then, they're still brutal, but Detroit was brutal. There were a few teams in there that just didn't compete with the rest. They didn't have the organizations they do now, New Jersey being one. So it's a lot more difficult to make the playoffs now, but to win the Stanley Cup when you get in there is, I've always said it's the most difficult trophy to win in sports. And, there's some pressure, but listen, when it comes down to it, go play.
Now, Carey Price looks finally like the thoroughbred that Bob Gainey said he was going to be, Jack.
Yeah.
Does this team have a chance to win the Stanley Cup? Are we maybe going to have a parade down St. Catherine Street?
I think they have a chance to make the final. To see them beating whoever survives in the West is tough, although whoever comes out of the West is going to be beat up because it's going to be tough. But, Price gives them, if he's the thoroughbred that they say he is, he gives them the same shot that Patrick Roy gave him when he was here. You have that superior goaltending if everything else comes together. If they can get past Tampa Bay, 99% chance they get Boston. To me, they're the only team in the East that might take out Boston. And there I say give them about a 20-25% chance. If they beat Boston, anybody else in the East they can beat. Yeah. So there's a path to the final.
What concerns you about them going into the playoffs, Chris?
Their size, again, when they get up against big teams, because, and again, the whole team is not small, but there's some key players out there that are small, that when you get in that offensive zone, if you're not moving your feet, you get in those one-on-one battles, you end up on the losing side, no matter how hard you try. Gallagher's going to try. I know Deane will try, but when you get in a one-on-one battle with a big moose defenseman and it becomes physical, 99% of the time you're going to lose it. They have to use their quickness, their speed, their hockey sense, good support in the offensive zone to keep it moving. You got to sustain some offensive pressure in that zone and some time. And once it becomes physical, often with the smaller guys on the ice, the puck is out and the other way.
But they now have a legitimate number one line with Vanek, Pacioretty, Desharnais. Jack Vanek, one thing that's impressed me about him, he's got a mean streak to him. Yeah. The game against Tampa, if the guys take the puck off him, he's not afraid to give a guy a chop or a hit. Yeah. He's more
I'm
physical.
Surprised. We saw Vanek a lot. Buffalo, they play him all the time. And I never saw this. I thought of him as a finesse European guy. He is gritty. He's tough. I think part of what's happened is he's come to a good organization in a town that wants to win and loves hockey, and he's playing up to it. And he's not going to give an inch anywhere. The guy, I hate to say this, he plays like a North American. Yeah. He's tough. Yeah.
Well, with Desharnais, Habs fans were bitching about his contract and everything. He's looking like he's worth every penny now. Was it just confidence with him, Chris? What was his problem earlier in the year?
Well, his problem was partly confidence, but the confidence was he didn't want the puck like he used to want it. He wasn't skating. He wasn't paying the price. He was kind of, I think he was feeling sorry for himself a little. It was getting to him. And he started to skate. He started to want the puck and do the things he used to do to make him successful. And, putting Gallagher there obviously helped, along with Max, and now with Vanek there, it's just gotten a whole lot better. I mean, that's a lethal line.
Now, Pat Hickey wrote a column saying that the Habs should give Andrei Markov a 3-year contract, Jack. Markov is the Iron Man on this team now with 135 games consecutively. Would you give him 3 years?
Yeah, I would. We had a series of bad luck accidents. First the Achilles with Price's skate and everything. When he's healthy, given what's happened with Subban, I would say since the Olympics, Markov's still the number one defenseman. And he and Emelin are the top pair. So I don't see anything falling off in his game. People say maybe he's lost part of a step. He's so smart that he more than makes up for that.
3 years?
Yeah, you know what? You got to keep him around. You hope he's here for that push to the Stanley Cup when they finally get this whole thing together. But you're right about PK. He's tailed off a bit, and you would think Markov. I mean, he's getting number one defenseman minutes. That's for sure.
And he's bringing Emelin along too.
That's true.
That's a factor.
That's true. Well, that's it for this week's HIO show. We'll be back next week with a new one. We hope you enjoyed it.